And second thing is, if you need to go get a cold one in the refrigerator, my talks always sound a lot better after 2 or 3 beers. And if you weren't getting hosed by COVID, I would have bought out Valhalla if that place ever reopens, because when I do anything on campus, I always do that. And consequently, I'm much more popular than I would be without the aid of alcohol. If that makes
I'll tell you
sense.
what, Dan is a well-known patron at Valhalla and many other haunts, mostly under the surface of the earth at Rice, and the facilities and engineering group as well.
Down the steam tunnels a lot.
And if you are not a Rice student, that probably won't mean too much to you, but if you are a Rice student, the steam tunnels are verboten, off limits. So I want to get started, Dan, so let me just kind of get going here. So don't forget that Mini Project is due this Friday, and they're collecting and statistically displaying market caps, dividend yields, and EBITDA to enterprise value for all companies back to 1950. So that's a mini project that we're doing this week. And then very most important, that don't forget, we're still in our trading competition, which started February the 11th. We have 36 positions that you guys put on, and 17 of them mark to market today or tomorrow. So please be very, very careful about that in checking out what your positions are doing. The S&P and other broad-based index options expire or stop trading today and settle tomorrow, and the equity options stop trading tomorrow and settle on Saturday. So make sure you watch that. If you have to run off from this class afterwards and go check your position, that's perfectly fine. Hopefully everything's fine, so you can just let things go to expiration if that's your strategy. So I wanted to introduce Dan, and he was very kind to kind of give us a little bit of an introduction. But as you know, he is now a renowned, his company is Energy Headhunter, and they're renowned recruiters in the executive recruiter specializing placements in the refining, exploration, energy trading, electric, wind, solar power, and biofuels business. So this is a very, I'm just reading the history of the formation of the Petroleum Club, Dan, and it's a beautiful book. And it all started with the oil men, oil people in the Houston area, that they wanted to have a club. And so, but anyway, so Energy Headhunters, here's what they do. They place executive search in the energy industry, specifically in skill sets such as energy swaps, energy options, derivatives, energy hedge funds, risk management, sales, oilfield supply, electricity trading, crude oil refining, marketing and trading, refined products trading, sales, energy services, carbon trading, natural gas processing, marketing and trading, liquid natural gas trading, as well as energy company executives. I tried getting a job through Dan one time, but was told that I didn't meet the stratospheric requirements to handle his placement. So I accepted that, and I think I've survived okay. Now, for fun, Dan is a regular speaker at energy events, such as the Offshore Technology Conference and other electricity events. He's an avid supporter of Rice and also the University of Kentucky. And he is a big supporter of Rice Graduate Student Association, Valhalla, and the Facilities and Equipment Department. I met Dan in 1998. Back in 99, while at Starbucks, we discussed traders and trading. On one occasion, he pointed out a sort of negligible man sitting at the table over there, and he said, "You see that guy? That guy is a commodities trader, proprietary commodities trader. His minimum account size is $1 million, and his only rule is don't ask him what he's doing." So I knew that Dan could wrestle alligators at that point and win. And so that was, I remember, I don't even remember his name, Dan, but I don't know if he's still in business. I imagine he is.
He is. And it's now 10 million minimum account size.
Very good.
And he still will not speak to clients on the telephone. He has an assistant that takes the calls and then goes in and talks to him, and he tells her basically, and she's a lot nicer than he is. And he, frequently his comment is, fuck them. And, you know, she parses that and kind of explains it nicely, you know. Well, at this time, we're thinking, you know, whatever, but, you know, really, you should just remain calm. You made 35%, asshole, last year. So, you know, if that's not good enough, take your damn money down the street.
Thank you for that update, Dan. We have remained friends over the years. I respected him in many ways and was always amazed at his ingenuity and insight. Around that time, we were looking into buying his Tito NYMEX, which was going for about $1 million, maybe leasing it for $10K per month. Dan went into the pros and cons over that, and then demutualization came timely, and I wonder what the return would have been if we had done that deal today, but I'll leave that as an exercise for the students. So, Dan, welcome to the class, and we are really happy to have you here. So, take it away.
You know, some of the most interesting things that happen to you in life happen by chance. I originally started in the idea of being something that involved a different route in life when I was in middle school. And one of my fine Southern teachers called me aside and said, you know, hon, bless your heart. She goes, you know, this is a gifted and talented group, and I don't want you to have a lot of anxiety. Well, I'd already figured out that I was far from the brightest person in the class, very far, and that probably I didn't belong there. And she said we needed one more to make the group what we were supposed to have. So you were on the border, so we let you in. I go, hey, thanks, appreciate it. And she goes, now, hon, I want to give you some professional advice here. She said, you need to do one of two things. You either need to be a pimp or a preacher. You're smart enough, you know what a pimp is. Preacher, you know what they do. You always need to be selling something that's bigger than yourself. And if you do that, you'll be successful in life. And it's like, well, okay, that kind of makes sense. And so the penalties for being a pimp were something that I didn't want to engage in. So, and my theological talents are at best limited. So I found something else, and mostly it's recruiting people who are vastly smarter than I am, but for whom there is a ferocious market. And so what we're going to do is talk about that for a few minutes. I started out in the business as a trader, worked at 4 different trading companies. And at the tail end of that, I was spending an inordinate amount of my time recruiting people for our trading pods, because the people that HR sent us were totally useless dumpster fires that, you know, they sent us because they met some, whatever the flavor of the month was that they were trying to promote in the company, and had no utility whatsoever. So I'd been recruiting, you know, I thought, well, maybe we should just do this on our own. And a couple of our competitors called and said, why don't you start a company and we'll give you 5 positions to start with. And I was like, well, okay, you know, called a couple of people and we formed a firm. And that was, well, let's see, 86, I guess. 86, because the WTI contract started trading in 84. And I spent most of 84 arbing the difference between WTI and LLS. And anyway, so that's how we got started in that business. We have 12 partners, and one of whom is a clinical psychologist. We tell people it's to evaluate and create a psychological profile for the people that we're interviewing and you know, promoting in the industry. In reality, it's just so we have somebody to talk with and not pay professional fees, you know, because we're all so screwed up. And so anyway, what we do is find extraordinary talent. You know where energy trading is done, and you know what it is. It's oil, jet fuel, motor gasoline, LNG, all those things that the government is currently making war on now, and which is going to create a whole bunch of opportunities for people in the energy space to make a lot of money. And that space is defined geographically as essentially Houston, New York, London, Singapore, and Geneva to a substantial extent. And that's where it happens. And if you interview with a company in one of these cities, expect to move around some. I've lived in 4 of those trading centers during my days, and they're fun places. You go on a you go and you travel well, you eat well. It's not a bad deal. Uh, the people in the space include banks. One of the largest energy traders in Houston is Macquarie, and they are, of course, the Australian bank. And we'll talk more about the Volcker rule later and how that's knocked a lot of the US banks out of it. Even Amazon and Walmart do energy trading. Now, for them, it's a rounding on the 10th latest, the farthest decimal out after the dot on their earnings. People like Glencore uh, are huge traders of epic size, but they range from everything from the enormous trade rooms that you see at places like British Petroleum to places like over on Allen Parkway. What are they called? Musket Trading. Musket Trading is the trading and supply and distribution arm of Love's Truck Stop. So they are the people who keep the tanks full of diesel, motor gasoline, and occasionally speculate in the meat market as a hedge against all the restaurant food that they do. There is a trend today, which is, okay, we got these traders sitting over here. They're generally a fairly disreputable group. Sometimes they appear to be frantically busy. Sometimes they appear to be doing nothing. And, idle hands, devil's workshop, all that stuff. So they're looking at other markets they're trading. There are energy groups in Houston today that are trading Bitcoin. Why? Because it's a market, and they can make a compelling argument that in some fashion it's related to their business. And you see this, they even trade ETFs related to the broader market. And it's a big change because mostly people had come to think of themselves as in a specific commodity, and they defined themselves around that. Now they're defining themselves more broadly as traders, and that's a huge change in mindset, and it's fairly revolutionary. I'm going to talk about 2 different groups that I think are most interesting: the traders, for obvious reasons, and the quants. The quants are a new ingredient in a lot of trade rooms. Increasingly, trading is becoming data driven as opposed to fundamentally driven. And it is not uncommon today to have a trader sitting at one desk and the next one over, I loosely call them desk, trade table, is the quant. And they interface together all day long. And the quant will be thinking about the trends that he's seeing in the data, how to mine it. And most energy companies have a huge amount of information that's coming in, and they're only really beginning to understand now how to mine it. Everything from pipeline nominations to intelligence they're getting out of ports because their tankers are there, to satellite photographs. They've learned a lot from the agricultural people. Mars Commodities and Uncle Ben's Rice have been brilliant in the way they utilize satellite technology and people on the ground to feedback intelligence reports. Vitol, during the Libyan civil war, had ex-SAS people on the ground reporting back on port conditions to them. And of course, they purchased a lot of crude oil from the rebels. And when those vessels would come into port, they had to completely pick up the cargo and be gone by daylight because you didn't want to be sitting there and attract artillery fire. Most of the vessels ran without benefit of insurance, with kind of shanghaied crews that you picked up in the worst bars in the world. And you would go in and you'd make enough money on one cargo that basically you could pay for the vessel. So if it You lost it, you know, and you know, you have a life insurance policy on each of the guys, so you kind of collect there again. Anyway, so they fortunately didn't lose a lot of vessels. A lot of the information on commodities is publicly available. So you see these strange events on API days, EIA days when they release inventory data, and people puke up positions that they've had based on the latest piece of paper. In reality, the really good trading companies pretty much know what's going to be in the reports before they're issued, because they have contacts and they mine those contacts for information at Shell, BP, all the other places. And you're some anonymous clerk at BP, no one pays much attention to you, and these guys plow you with free dinners and lunches and things, and you know, get the information that you're going to be filing, and as a result of that, you're an important person in their life, and you are. As we look at who makes up, as I said, there are traders, and a lot of them come out of the really good schools, Rice being one of them. They also come from places more, you know, statisticians, physicists, engineers. They bring a particular intellectual discipline to trading. Then we have, that's one group, the elite grads, always accustomed to being the smartest guys in the room. Then we have what we call street guys. Street guys are people who came up through the energy companies, have encyclopedic knowledge about not much, but what they specialize in, they know everything about it. It may be a pipeline system, it may be Gulf Coast ports, how many barrels an hour you can discharge, whose pumps are ready for overhaul. It is amazing what they know. And these people are specialists in commodities and define themselves around those commodities. They may schedule barrels on various pipelines, and they're good friends with the other schedulers, and they make you a lot of money. These guys are, many of them come from the general recruiting in the company. They weren't the best and the brightest or whatever, but you need people to do these jobs, so they pull them out. Accountants, you know, a lot of people who then distinguish themselves. It may be 8 years that it takes them to distinguish themselves in the company, but you know, you keep watching them and you're interacting with the traders all day, and finally they walk over and say, "Hey, would you like to try trading for a while? We'll put you on as a junior analyst or junior trader, and you know, we'll tell you what to do, and you know, if you learn quick, and then that's how you break into trading." And you're sitting right there with beside an MBA from the University of Chicago doing exactly the same job. And it's interesting because lots of times the people who get puked up from the bowels of the company actually do a better job, because they understand what's happening in the company, and they have a network of contacts that they can call when there's something that they don't understand. And they'll go down to Corpus to the refinery, and they'll go, let me see the pumps. How do we do this? And you know, people will explain it to them. Sometimes the elite school people don't, you know, they just think they're supposed to be smart, and there's not a whole lot that they have to learn, and frequently it bites them in the ass in a really big way. A third group of people that we see a lot of in trading are former special operations people. There is something about a person who is dropped into a very hostile environment, who realizes that what they've got in the rucksack is the only thing that stands between them and death or capture, which is in most cases worse. They understand overland navigation. If you screw up on the numbers, you're going to die. It's just that simple. You won't be there for your extraction point at the appropriate time, and you're going to die. That really focuses your mind. And also when you're trading, okay, you're down X number of dollars. Compared to burning to death, that doesn't look so bad. They have a sense of proportionality associated with risk. I've never seen in a trading room anyone walk in and shoot anyone else. So in the scheme of things, losing a little money it's a big deal, but it's not that big a deal. As you look at these people and you say, what do they each bring to the table? The quant guys are really the people who walk on water now, especially if they can program, like in Python or something like that. These guys, if they have any sense of market, which most don't, can look at the data that's pouring through in this fire hose and mine it for valuable insights that they bring to the trade team meetings. And that is absolutely a gold mine. You're defined in that world. If you're a superior risk manager, you're going to go a long way. That's even more important than being just a great trader, because if you can't cut off bad trades, and John from his prop trading days can tell you, a bad trade will eat your lunch and your year. I mean, it will absolutely destroy you and destroy your reputation. So you're defined by your P&L. If you're smart and you go into trading, you keep that monthly P&L and keep it at home. So if they sack you, you still got it to advertise at your next show. You make sure that you maintain a current calculation of what kind of VAR you have and how that has progressed over the years. Then we normally meet people after they've had about 3 years in the industry. At that point, we have a measure, a sense of who they are, and they have a reputation. So, it really behooves you to mine your reputation. You're going to interview, and this could be true for any job. So let's talk a little bit about the interviewing process. If you're going to be out in the world, you need at least 2 good interviews a year. I don't care whether you're looking for a job, that's irrelevant. You need 2 good interviews. And interviews are not with HR people. They don't count. You need to have interviews with people who actually touch the profession that you're interested in, who actually participate on a daily basis. If there's some corporate minion, you're going to walk away with exactly the wrong impressions about what you really do. Preparing for an interview is something we talk to people about all the time. And it's something that is very hard for them to understand. You don't have to become an expert on every company in the space. One company for this presentation, I want you to know virtually everything that you can get your hands on. Mine data sources, talk to people. We'll provide you with information, but you need to understand that company in a way that shows your degree of preparation, your commitment to your craft or your art, if you will, and that you are someone who can go into very ambiguous situations and understand it and bring order to it. Be ready to give a short elevator speech presentation of why you're interested in the company, and any of the points you make in the speech have more data underneath that if they ask you a question about it that shows that you understand it. And if you're going to work to an interview, let's say for a scheduling position. Okay, scheduling was your first job in the company. Now you're a junior trader and it's been 1.5 years since you scheduled. Then you walk over and talk to the scheduling people. What's changed since I was here? What's new? What's interesting that's going on? So that you understand the most up-to-date information about the skill set that you're bringing to the company. It wouldn't take you long to get up to speed, but it's a lot more impressive if you have it stone cold nailed right now. And then you need to ask some good questions. Everybody says to do that. I don't know many people who provide you with a question, but one of the questions I like to see people ask is, hey, tell me, why did you come to work here? And what keeps you coming to work here? And you'll learn more about the company with that single question than you can possibly imagine. You'll hear complaints, you'll hear wonderful things that no one ever talks about, and certainly the HR people will never discuss with you. And but it will give you an insider's view of the company. Always expect additional competition. I mean, get it here, take away. Companies lie. Companies lie systemically. Did I use that word right, John? I think it's systemically, isn't it?
Yes.
And they will tell you, oh, there's no one else interviewing for this. They'll tell the recruiter that. There's always internal competition. Someone who's seen this job posting is throwing their hat in and will use their contacts, influence, and their brother-in-law, who's vice president of aviation, to try and nail the job. And it's always going to be there. Above all else, be friendly and personable. And you go, this cranky old man's telling me about being friendly. What a hypocrite. But it is so important, because your reputation precedes you into every job, and it precedes you into every department. And again and again and again, you see that. Why did they hire XYZ over someone else? Because trading companies are tribal organization. They are hunter-gatherers, and they want people who will mix well with the rest of the team. If you don't trust the person, if you don't communicate well with the person, it's not going to work. They will gradually be isolated from the rest of the trading team, and they will die in oblivion through lack of promotion and transfers to other departments. Because you don't usually want to fire these people, you just transfer them to another department and let them deal with them. One of the things I like to see candidates do is, at the end of the interview, ask them if there are any areas that you need to expand on, any issues you need to clarify, and give them an opportunity to say, to tell you if there's a nagging question they've got. Do that, and you'll save yourself a lot of trouble. When you write the thank you note, you may even expand on that a little bit more. But the key is, get objections out early while you still have a chance to deal with them, especially before they write down their expectations or the interview notes. Trading is a really marvelous profession. It's oil and money go hand in hand. It's sexy. You can go to a party and you can talk about Bonnie Light. No, it's not a drug. It's grade of crude oil. You get to do all these wonderful things. You get to go some of the world's most interesting cities, and usually you travel well. But very, very few are chosen. Frequently, it's luck. Frequently, it's just not screwing up in your first job. It's being in a situation where you're liked, and if someone doesn't know something, they call you because you have your hands in so many different places in the company. They can tell you where to go, or they will go and find out for you. Young man that I know of that works for Citco, he gives all the vice presidents his mobile number, and he says, anytime you need anything, just call me. It may not be his area of responsibility. He doesn't say, oh, you'll have to call so-and-so about that. He goes, gets the information for them, and hand delivers it to the executive floor. Smart guy. He sometimes will go up and make coffee and take the coffee pot around and pour coffee. They thought he was the coffee service for a while, but they realized he worked in accounting. And this is a guy that will have a great future. Is he bright? Not that bright. And in fact, I don't know, John, you may have taught him at University of St. Thomas, but he is thoughtful. He has wonderful human resource relation skills, not resources. And he is a guy that understands that companies run on an official organizational chart and they have an unofficial organization chart. And that is, you go to the people who get things for you and get them in a timely fashion. And that is a skill in itself. Trading is measured by how much money you earn and how much money you keep. I don't know if you carry a roll of bills in your pocket. I think all people should, because I've been a lot of places in the world. Nothing works like cash and gold. And if you get in a tight spot, you'll be amazed what old money will do for you. But how much of that you keep, and everything will conspire to take your money, especially if you're a successful trader. When you're looking at a company, don't be afraid to use things like fellow alumni, people who work at the company that may know you, contacts in other companies. That's the reason I stress being likable so much. I've seen on so many occasions, you're sitting there at your desk, you get a call, and they go, "Hey, listen, I heard you might be looking for a Gulf Coast gasoline trader." Yeah, sure are. Well, here's XYZ, and really great guy. They tell you all these things about them, and it's like, oh, okay, well, okay. They weren't even on our radar. They are now, because I respect the guy on the other end of that call. That's why I took his call. Okay. And so how you're liked, how you're perceived, if you're faithful to commitments, is an absolute huge issue in terms of how you do in the trading environment. There are many people who are not that gifted as traders, but take care of other functions in the company. And they're part of the trading pod because they get things done. And they have social currency in the industry that they can move. They can call somebody Colonial Pipeline and find out this. They can call somebody at, somewhere else and find out another issue. So people who relate to the tribe, people who have social currencies are big hits. And then the final thing is, when I mentioned these 2 interviews each year, never assume an interview is a total washout. Innumerable times I've had people call and say, last year we interviewed XYZ and we didn't have anything at that time that we felt like was a good match, but I was really impressed. He is an excellent person. And so I kept his name here on file. And, I'm just calling to let you know. Okay, next call is to this guy. Why? He's impressed somebody that we respect. And if you impress somebody on an interview, even if nothing happens, you're miles ahead and you have a potential referral source there. When you look at organizations, the importance of trading depends on the organization. If you're with Exxon, BP, Citgo, at the end of the day, it's about refinery netbacks and what they're making at the refinery. Trading is icing on the cake. Take the icing, it's good, it tastes great, but you're not going to get that excited about it, and that's not where most of your calories come from. So they reflect that in their compensation things. But at proprietary trading houses, discretionary trading, these guys live on the deal flow. They in turn reflect that in their compensation and their appreciation of the traders. And it's mostly at the proprietary trading houses you see some of the really bizarre behaviors. Sometimes they complain that all their people are egomaniacs, which many of them are. And as a result of that, you can see some really bizarre things. And so you have to figure out where your social tolerance is. It is not uncommon, even in this day and age, to have your boss call you and say, look, you need to meet us at XYZ Club tonight, and tell Bob and John to meet us there too. And it's like, okay. And you don't have to be all that bright. What's going to happen is they're going to have a humongous tab, and they're going to slice it up among 3 people. You put it on a third on your expense account, a third on their expense, and it gets that way. The guy who's sitting here with us is our boss, and he's going to authorize our expense accounts. He doesn't have to put it on his own. And if you're uncomfortable with that level of ambiguity, and you're just going to probably not do well. It's a high stress, high stakes environment. And if you're uncomfortable, realize that about yourself up front and go, okay, I'm not going to die on this hill. I'll just not go up on that hill. I'll go to a different hill, and you'll be a lot happier, and you'll be a lot more at peace with yourself. Be ready to embrace the interview process. Have a current passport. It is not at all uncommon that if you interview, we talked about those principal trading cities. If you interview in one of those cities, let's say you interview in Houston, I say, okay, look, here's how our business operates. We trade at night, we hand it off to Singapore. Singapore picks up the trade book, and they go with it. Okay. And then they hand it off to London. Then we get up in the morning, we take it from London. And all those people in that chain, they have to be comfortable with you. They have to feel like you're giving them good, legitimate information that they can use to more effectively trade. They have to feel that you're not misrepresenting, even though there's a written trade summary that everybody gets. They have to feel like you're giving them the straight skinny. And they have to think you're funny and reasonably charming, and you become their contact. And the same thing is true with counterparties that you deal with in trading. You probably talk to them every day. Who are you going to talk to, especially when you got a deal to do? You're going to talk to the people you like, or the people that you can't stand or are indifferent to. Maybe you call your friends first. Hey, I got this available. Do you want it? Here's, and then it goes from there. If you're not in the deal flow, you're not in the game. It's just that simple. And that is really kind of a hard thing to grasp. Some places like Amazon does trading, but it's a rounding error for them. They operate a huge airplane of jet aircraft fleet. They burn more diesel fuel than most anybody, and yet their people aren't very well fit into the trading environment. They never get the cheap barrels. They are always a dollar late, day dollar short, day late, and it's an interesting thing to watch. But as I said, have your passport, be prepared, because you may have to go to London, you may have to go to Singapore to interview people to see if they're comfortable with you. And sell in your organization, outside your organization. Make sure that you've got business cards that list your personal mobile number as the first number on your business card. Now, don't list a company mobile for people that you give outside the firm. So if you get shot out of the saddle, you get terminated, people will still call that mobile number, and you can enlist them in your job search. Go, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I left there and I'm looking around for something else. Happens to everybody, sooner or later. You're going to bust out at some point in time. Preferably do it early in your career when there's not a lot of money involved. And but sell. And those referrals, that network of people you make, will be some of the most important people in your entire life. Now, if you're working in a supply-driven organization like Exxon, BP, you have a lot longer training period. Learning is more leisurely. and it's harder to get fired. You usually get transferred to another department, and you know, pace there reflects the lower threat level. If you work in a prop shop, it's high risk, high reward. You have to learn warp speed. You have to be able to drink from a fire hose. 2 bad months and you're probably gone. And no transfer, just out the door. And it happens to everybody. I don't know anybody who is a great trader who hasn't fallen on their sword at least once. Because, you know, if you take risk, sometimes you screw up. The compensations in the prop shops are higher, net, and the bonuses are much higher. I'll give you a couple of illustrations that I can do it without violating anything here. Supply and distribution. People who nominate on various pipelines and may handle some tanker activity. The best bonus I've ever seen paid for someone with that skill set was $1 million one year. Now, they did some extraordinary things which enabled their trading team to make a huge amount of money by being extraordinarily creative in their use of barges and pipelines to move a huge amount of gasoline to meet barrels that they had pre-sold into a very high market. And they slammed it, and they slammed it beautifully, and they made a lot of money. Second case of that would be one of the guys who went into Libya during the Civil War and checked out the docks. His bonus that year was $1 million, but he put his life on the line to do that. I mean, it was really hazardous, and he understood all the logistics. He understood how the pumps work, probably an engineering school graduate, but he did it, and he did it well. And they got those tankers in and out, in and out, in and out. And every night one would come in, and then they ran like hell, because the next morning they would shell that place systematically. And, you know, then became a question of, can you repair the damage to get us in tonight? You have this amount of money. They tell you, okay, well, we're going to set aside X percentage for bonuses. Then you're at the management meetings, and, you know, they're sitting there kind of going, you know, we had a hell of a year last year. We've got, you know, however many million in the bonus pot. Yeah. You know, we could use that to reduce our operating expenses, and the corporate boys will really think we're brilliant. So basically, we're going to steal from our own people. Well, that's putting it harshly. I'll give you an illustration. I was sitting with one of the management groups, and they said, well, you know, we're concerned about paying. We had a barn burner year last year, but we're concerned about paying because of the optics of the COVID pandemic. I was like, what the fuck does that mean? The optics of the COVID? Okay, you made a lot of money, so you're going to steal from your employees and not pay them because it would look bad for your people to be making a lot of money during a pandemic. Come on, guys. You know, that's absurd. But, you know, it still travels. One of the problems that you're going to have being young traders is the Volcker rule. And the damn government makes best opportunities for trading and then screws us up in so many ways. The Volcker rule prohibits US banks from trading. At one time, they had some of the largest trading groups in existence, and they can't do prop trading much anymore. There are extreme limitations. You can read about it online. That went into effect as a result of the 2008 financial meltdown, and it went into effect, as I recall, 2014. So you had a lot of traders suddenly on the street who used to work for Morgan and all kinds of other people. So there are fewer seats out there. If you go to work trading for a bank, it'll probably be a foreign bank. Macquarie, the Australian bank, is one of the largest here in Houston. They do a huge book of energy business because the United States has abandoned the trading field to them because of a government regulation. Now, as the current administration goes to a war against fossil fuels, That's going to create some enormous opportunities to make a lot of money. Just like in the 70s, 80s, early 80s, they had federal price controls on old crude oil in the United States. Oh my gosh, we made more money out of that than you can possibly imagine. And because you can make any kind of rule you want, but traders, being an ingenious lot, are going to find a way to get around it. One of the things we emphasize with real talent, if you're not really talented, it won't matter because you won't have the bargaining power to do it, is that your compensation agreement should be written and executed, and not, well, here's what we generally try and do. And, we paid this amount last year. Well, it was probably on a much smaller bonus pool. The question is, what do they pay on a big, big bonus pool? Every few years, you have a monster market. And if you're on the right side of that market, you make a ton of money. Your goal is not just to make it, but to take a large percentage of it home with you. You haven't won just by making good trades. You only win when you put that money in your pocket. And rest assured, the companies will try and rob you. I've been in the management meetings. I've thought the same things myself. Man, we can be such a hero here, and executive VP. I see it now coming down the road. Hallelujah. Amen. Dan's genius, stealing from his own people. Anyway, the other thing that is really, really important, some of you may be quants. I want to have a serious talk with you about something here. The intellectual property claims by many of these companies are and the non-compete agreement, so they try and get you to sign, are absolutely ridiculous. They basically want to keep you, yes, but they want to also shut down any opportunities that you have to work with anyone else in the industry, where your market knowledge and sense of what's going on may be appropriate. So first, don't sign stupid agreements. If you can't explain it to your mother or father and then go, yeah, that's okay, don't sign the damn agreement. I mean, PhDs don't grow on trees. And you probably speak good English and communicate ideas well. A lot of the other people they'll be talking to, you can't. And, they go to meetings with them and they'll sit there and you go, don't say a word. No one will understand you. And, look smart, make up for the rest of us. And anyway, so what you do is, if you want to really optimize your earnings flow, number one, don't sign a stupid agreement. Number two, when you look at employment agreements, get not your brother's cousin who's an attorney, get a specialist in employment law and have them help you review the comments. And the things that you don't like, scratch it out, take you a Sharpie and write there, no deal, and cross it out altogether. It's the big thick Sharpie, no deal. And they'll go, well, we may not be able to make you the offer. Well, fine. You're not the only company in town either. Then I'll work at some other company where they'll just hammer your ass every day in trading. So, would you prefer to have me in here or out there? Think about it. It is record keeping is incredibly important. For instance, if you're a quant, you should keep a journal contemporaneously on sequentially numbered pages with basically hourly breakdown of what you're working on. It not only helps for progress reports to management, but it can show that many of the things that you may come up with didn't come from the company. Now, when you go home, kiss the kids, kick the dog, whatever you do, then you have a different journal, sequentially numbered pages again, and you keep track of ideas that you're working on, ideas that you've had. No, they don't own everything you think about when you're watching Married with Children or whatever, the Housewives of Dallas. You know, you think of things and you go, well, you know, what if I did this? Cloud computing time is so cheap. You can pay for it yourself. Run the test, see how it looks, and see if it has romance for you. And if it does, then you have a choice about whether you present it to your company or you take it on the road. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to sue the hell out of anybody you go to work for, claiming you've signed an agreement which precludes your going anywhere else. And I think it's good form. It's always appropriate to offer it to your current company, but perhaps with the caveat, look, guys, you know, you're paying me this. I need more money. And, you know, on my own time, my own resources, I've developed this idea. Essentially, here's what it does. If you want it, then you're going to have to pay me better. Or somebody else will. Your choice. And you don't have to be that blunt, but I think you get the point. If you don't advocate for your case, no one else is going to. And yes, quants are paid a lot of money. There are a lot of quants in this town that are making over $500,000 a year. And that's not nearly enough. So I guess one of the things I want to do as a final point is I want you to remember that sometimes you win by not winning. And this is a story here, true story. You know, you hear things from people. I'd heard about this guy, and you know, he had a, I think, PhD from like North Carolina, someplace, Pakistani, very gifted guy, smart. I mean, painfully intelligent. You know, he's one of those guys, it's like a really good piece of chocolate. It makes your teeth hurt to eat it sometimes. You know, I mean, it's just, this guy was, you'd sit there and look at him and you go, were we born on the same planet that you're this much smarter than I am? And so anyway, I put in a call to him, gradually track him down and said, you know, I want to talk to you. And we got him to come over, and he showed us what he did. And it was like, this is almost magic. And, you know, okay, so why don't we're going to send you some interviews. And we told him, you know, you don't sign anything. We have an attorney for that. And you don't make any promises, and just say, leave that to the headhunter. And because we didn't have an opening for this guy. And I mean, you know, great geniuses, that's kind of hard to put on an HR form. Anyway, so we take him to 3 companies. And I made 3 pitches. One was, look, here's what he needs, a base of this. And no, you don't own everything. You own what he works on here. Otherwise, we're not going to do it. Second pitch was to a private company. He'll come to work for $10 a month. And we'll have a calculation, net P&L, for what his formulas generate in the way of trades. And we'll take out $100,000 for overhead. And so $10 a month, $100,000 for overhead, includes medical insurance, you know, all the corporate things that people do. And then you pay him 30% of what he makes. And, you know, this is found money for you. I mean, you're risking nothing here. Third company made him an offer that was, I think, 25%, a somewhat discretionary bonus for XYZ amount, and then a guaranteed bonus for another, just to make sure that, you know, they came across with a serious amount of money. But at 25%, they got really nervous. And all 3, they didn't hire him. Okay. All right. So we talked to him and said, look, maybe what you should do is package this product and lease it to people, and we make 4 or 5 phone calls. We'll get you the startup capital to do it. So he did that, and he now charges $70,000. Now it depends on which algos you select and all that. $70,000 a month from one of the companies that he interviewed with and who was too damn cheap to pay him a fair percentage. And that would have been a lot cheaper for them than the 70,000 a month. And they run up to 100,000. He's making well over $1 million a year. Now, the really funny thing is the guy still works at a convenience store. And I go, why in the world, you're making this huge amount of money. Why do you still work at a convenience store? And he goes, well, that's kind of that's my normal. He goes, the cops come in and, I fix them breakfast and everything. And we drink coffee and talk together, and the tow truck drivers. And he goes, then just the people. And of course, he's off during market hours so that he can watch the algo and advise the clients on what's going on. But because that's his normal, that's his world, and he feels anchored by it. So we all have things that have to anchor us for stressful times. So if you're subject, take care of your crap before you get into trading. If you're subject to depression, anxiety, a whole host of other things, get the crap taken care of. There's good professional help out there, but it will be 10,000 times worse if you're on a losing streak. Now, your VAR rules, your credit committee will all determine where you punch out if you want to wait that long. They'll force you out. They'll shut down your positions. But anxiety and things manifest themselves in peculiar ways. And that's the reason you see so many of these guys at clubs drinking too much and all that. For instance, one of the guys that made the most money out of the Enron deal had to cash his stock in because of a divorce, because the topless dancer, exotic dancer that he was dating, his wife found out about her, and she divorced him, and he had to sell the stock to monetize, to pay off her, and then also his own stuff. And then she bought a ranch in Colorado, and I used to see her here in town, and she had a beautiful Bentley and with a individualized license plate that said pay as you go. She raises quarter horses now. Her first quarter horse was named Pay As You Go. And I thought, only in this town, only in this business can these things happen. And he came out a multi-millionaire and did well because he sold all of his stock before the thing cratered. So human frailty is magnified in the trading business. And if it's there, it will find you. Companies like Vitol, Traffic Europe, the foreign banks are great places to pursue a career, especially the more adventuresome the company. But those aggressive tendencies, when you're around people that are cut from that cloth, can exaggerate all of your worst tendencies. So have them well under control, and never forget who you are and what your normal is. Never depart from it, and you'll do very well. John?
Oh, well, let's give Dan a round of applause, first of all.
Drink up.
Right.
You can have a virtual beer from Valhalla. Yeah.
What's the placement of women? How is that doing nowadays?
There is a lot of it because the majors, BP, people like that, are forcing it through their pipeline. And in the proprietary trading shops, it's there, but it is less prevalent. And the reason it's less prevalent is because a lot of women are a little saner than the men are. And so you're not going to be out with this at 2 o'clock in the morning. You probably have something more constructive to do.
Well, if we
have the second, can we kind of be honest here? The second thing is, a lot of people are afraid of women because they have that gun they can use. They can say, oh, you sexually harassed me. Well, it's just a titty joke. I wasn't sexual harassment, and it's kind of like, oh, gee, what can possibly go wrong here? Everything. And so they prefer to stay away from the problem and kind of ghettoize those people in the trade environment. And they walk around on eggshells. It's like, how are you doing? Speak no evil, hear no evil. you know,
So,
they're afraid.
John, I'm just going to have to speak up on that one. For all the young women in the crowd, don't be intimidated. Just get in there, and this is something you want to do, then just you can make it happen. So,
Yeah, we have a woman partner in we have 2 women partners in our firm, but they're not. One of them carries a gun all the time, drives a pickup truck, and is a incredible expert on pipeline systems. And she doesn't take crap from anybody. And, you know, she can tell you things that just, you know, will make your hair curl. And she is great. She does really, really well. But people trust her and they're not afraid of her, you know, and in the sense of pulling the dreaded gun of sexual harassment or whatever. And, you know, they don't have to self-edit all the time. And they don't have to worry that, you know, oh, she's going to think that was inappropriate, unwanted, whatever. And, you know, she just turns around and goes, fuck you, shut your mouth. I'll blow your dick off, you know, and, you know, okay, we got that. Move on. I guess that probably went too far, but that's all right. You can tell we run a very politically correct organization.
Any questions for Mr. Clark? This was just, I don't know whether you realize it or not, but this would be a $3,000 seminar to go to get this kind of guidance on interviewing and how to get ahead in the business. This is a very serious talk you gave today, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Well, a side note here. This has been one of the busiest year of our company's existence. And the reason is that COVID has killed people. A lot of people in the energy business are older because it's a mass of information you collect over a period of time, and then you use it, and you're always restoring and renewing it with new information. A lot of them are kind of older, and many of these companies were, because we went through our cost cutting phase, are very thin. Maybe you have one really good jet fuel trader, and he basically conducts an orchestra here, and the junior people are all running around doing their things. One good diesel trader, and all of a sudden they're dead. They're on a respirator. And our own general counsel was in Methodist for 4 months and will be in rehab for 4 months. And he wasn't that old a guy. I mean, you know, he's 60s, but I don't think that's that old. But anyway, it has. I was looking at my phone the other day, sitting out at the FBO, and it was like, all these people, I haven't deleted them from the phone yet, but you know, they're gone. And so now we're scrambling to, you know, get people in those slots, because a lot of jobs depend on it. If you're a truck stop operator, each of your truck stops usually will employ like 125 people. Now, if you don't have reasonably priced diesel to sell, you are big time screwed. You're not, I mean, the truckers, you know, they have these computer programs, they know where they're going to stop and where they're not. Now you can sell a little gasoline to mom and dad, but I'm sorry, the big time stuff, the big boys aren't going to be in there fueling up with you. So
I will point out that Dan just said he was at his FBO. Now, what that means is he's at his fixed base operator for his private plane he was taking somewhere. So where was that?
Yeah. Where was I going?
Yes.
Chicago.
On the company plane?
Yep.
Very nice.
Well, and what we do is we buy envelopes of hours from other people who have, you know, so many hours, or they own their own aircraft. And so we'll go, okay, we'll buy, you know, 150, 200 hours from you next year. And, you know, we'll work around scheduling. Usually they've got multiple aircraft, and so we can all make our schedules fit. And in headhunting, if you're not in the room, you're not in the deal. So you better damn well be in the room when the negotiating is going on. Otherwise, your client will get clipped every time. He does this once every 5 years. They do it 100 times a year. So the disproportionate experience there, and most people suffer from modesty. They suffer from a sense of insecurity. I'll tell you that one of the biggest problems we had when this young man started his deal to lease his algos, people would look at him and say, "You're just a young guy. Our division head doesn't make this much money." They calculated what it will be on a yearly basis. And he goes, "Yeah, but your division head can't do this. So either shut up and pay it, or we'll take it down the street to somebody else." That's the charming version of that discussion, and the more politically cleaned up direction. So, but they have a hard time. The people that we offered the deal with of $10 a month, and will reduce what he makes with 100,000 in corporate overhead. Their reason for not taking the deal was, if their other traders saw that happening, they would all demand a similar deal or a certain scaled down version of it, and they just didn't want to give up that much of the upside in the company, because it's usually easier. Let's say you've got a bang up market every 5 years. Okay, we got this group here, and you look at them across the screen and you go, okay, who can we really afford to lose? And then who do we really want to hose and keep their money? And then we can kind of, okay, we'll have to replace them. But by the next time the next really big market comes around, we'll probably have somebody trained up, and we'll be okay. And so it's usually quicker to steal money than it is to make it, if that makes any sense to you.
But Dan, the minute that you put the word steal in front of it, doesn't that mean illegal?
Well, if it were illegal, we'd be in court litigating. But they don't have a signed compensation agreement.
Yeah.
So they say, well, this is what we normally do. This is what we did last year. Well, if you got a small bonus, you made X number of dollars. The aluminum guys had a bad year. We got to help them out. And, the company took a big hit in coffee. Okay. No, don't give me that bullshit. I didn't have anything to do with coffee. He didn't have anything to do with coffee. You owe us money. Pay us. Show us some money, damn it, or get out of the way.
Yeah, I remember when Lehman Brothers, we had the general manager, and he's a Rice alum, and he was talking about the fact that one part of the company was allowed to exceed their risk tolerance, and that's what brought the whole company down. And so it was interesting to see that interplay between the different components of the company.
You're old enough to know what I'm going to be talking about here. I knew that I was irrevocably in love with commodity trading when the first day I stepped on the trading floor of Bear Stearns as a visitor from Shell Oil. I was getting introduced around, and they took me over and introduced me to Ace Greenberg. And he was sitting on that podium, because he was up so he could see the entire trading floor. And he said, "Come over here and sit down in my chair." He said, "I want you to see my view of the world." And he pointed out the different trading pods and what they were doing. And I thought, man, this juice is amazing. And it was. I mean, he did it, he wasn't slick. He was not a scalpel. He was a butcher knife. But what a butcher knife.
Where do you go today if you want to relive that floor experience?
I'd go to, well, the big trading floors, a lot of them are in corporations like BP, but the same animal spirit is not there that you got in the trading floors. Maybe some of VTOL. Go to the main VTOL trading floor. Those guys play hardball. I mean, they are excellent traders. They're geniuses. And Glencore is another one. Total and their trading floor in Paris. You know, they're always looking for a deal. It was the Total chairman who was killed in Moscow. He was there cutting a deal, and supposedly a snow plow cut in front of his plane, you know, with a drunk Russian driver. Everybody believed that. Anyway, so he died there, but they were always on the move. You know, and people who, Vital, for instance, understands cross commodity deals. You know, they may help you, they may supply you with diesel fuel, they may take sugar back from the Cubans. You know, they do creative deals that just really resonate in the market, and where, because there aren't 100 people lined up, you know, in commodities, you got to bid and ask, and that doesn't require much negotiating deal. Doing barter deals requires a lot of smarts and incredible logistics, and the margins are much, much better than just trying to make a living between the bid and the ask.
Well, do we have any more questions?
In reference to your question about women, anyone who's really talented and people are not afraid of and is likable can do well. However, every time there is one of these events, like with Governor Cuomo, and you know, someone from his 8th grade class said, oh, well, he made an unwarranted comment to me, you know, unwanted, whatever the term is. And it's kind of like, okay, you've been harboring this since the 8th grade, eh? Okay, whatever. It does tremendous damage, because inevitably there's a flurry of emails from HR about, now don't do this, don't do that. You know, so you just want to put up the cross and say, stay back, please, stay back. Can I move my desk further away?
I would argue that that's not the solution, however. And I have to say that many of my very successful female students are doing quite well in this industry, and but it isn't for the faint of heart.
Well, I mean, hell, they have to do well, because a number of the companies have quotas on, you know, some of your bonus depends on promoting them. Now, is that going to get done? You're damn right it's going to get done.
They're pretty damn smart too.
Well, they may be. I'm not saying they're not, but what I'm saying is, when they incentivize it with money, you're going to see the results. And now the question then is to sort through and figure out how much of that is actually accomplishment and how much of it's, you know, they've been given deals. And there's a lot of that going on, because they need to justify the promotion, which in turn a portion of their bonus depends upon. So there's a lot of social engineering going on right now. I mean, a whole lot. And, you know, they'll tell the team, say, okay, and you do this anyway. You always want your name associated with the big deals. And so they're going to go, okay, we're going to put so-and-so's name with this deal because they were in on the team. Really? Everybody on the same page with this? Okay, yeah, okay. And so he gets his bonus, and then he in turn has to help with the bonus of these other people. As I said, when you give people an incentive with money, things happen.
Well, I've been waiting for this opportunity for a number of years to be able to just sit and have a chat with Dan. So I just can't believe I don't have any more.
I keep waiting for the incentive for senior citizens, slightly balding, moderately overweight, to, you know, because I want to get on that train. Although I think it's gonna be a cold day in hell.
I don't know. I see you walking around campus every day for 3 miles, so that's pretty darn good.
I live in West University Place, so Rice is on my walking route. By the way, I tried to, when you go into Valhalla, if you look up on the left, assuming that it's still there, there's a picture of John Schroeder, who is one of the founders of Valhalla. I tried, honestly, very hard to hire John. And I said, look, you know, I just want you to look at business development for this company. And I said, you know, you only have to go into the office once a week. The rest of the time you can operate from your house. but you do have to go in once a week, and you have kind of have to dress moderately appropriate for that. And so, you know, I made him what I thought was a hell of an offer. I mean, I started at 160 and capped it at 190, and finally just said, okay, 190,000. You're a friggin' lecturer in physics. I mean, good grief, you know, you're not making that kind of money. Don't kid me. And he goes, well, I can ride my bicycle and I can do this and I can do that. And it's kind of like, you know, and I thought, well, John's a whole lot healthier than I am, and he can explain things to me. So he's worth a lot for that reason. The price of a beer, I get all this information. And so I asked him, I said, you know, when I die, will you give the talk at my memorial service? Because you've seen a side of me that most people will not see. And he goes, sure, I'll do that. Well, then John dies before I do. And it's kind of like, man, you know, you never know how life's going to work out. So, and don't be one of those guys who, you know, ventilates his skull because his trading position goes bad. We get some of those every year.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. It's all a game, and you define it by how much money you take home.
Thank you, Dan.
The company.
We are going to wrap it up there for today, unless there are any more last minute questions. But otherwise, we'd like to thank everyone for coming out today, and especially to Dan for speaking to us today.
Yeah, and I forgot to kill that small dog during the presentation. Sorry about that, folks. We'll have to get that another time.
Yeah, I forgot all kinds of stuff I was going to say too. So anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Appreciate it much. Take care, guys.